La diffusion vient de démarrer. Tous les participants sont en mode écoute seul.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for this slight delay. We were waiting and making sure that everyone's microphone is working. It's a real pleasure to greet you and to welcome you to the Sixth National Report Technical Webinar Series. And as you know, since May and today for the last time, the series will focus on the best practices in using spatial data with examples from around the world. My name is Marion Marigot. I am a UNDP technical specialist for the Sixth National Report to the CBD project, and I will be facilitating this webinar today together with my colleagues Prudence Rain and Martin Cadena. Spatial data can help us understand where biodiversity and ecosystem services are located, how human pressure impact nature, and the potential impact of conservation actions. These data also can help improve the effectiveness of measures to achieve the Aichi biodiversity targets and will guide implementation of the CBD's Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. To ensure that countries will receive adequate support, we consolidated a roster of spatial data experts with more than 20 experts available to support you in producing maps for your Sixth National Report, and more generally to support any activity in link with spatial data in the future. If you're interested in learning more for this, you can reach me out at marion.marigot@undp.org. So for the past year and a half, we challenged countries to double the number of maps in their Sixth National Report as compared to the Fifth National Report. And we're on track to succeed. It is now time to showcase the best practices and learn from each other. And to do so, through this webinar series, we hosted, and we're hosting for the last time today, 4 webinars that demonstrate how 14 countries are using spatial data to enhance biodiversity conservation. In this context, today, our 4th and last webinar session will focus on using the using the spatial data in a context of the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and see how we can support national policies with spatial data. So today, we will have 3 presentations from 3 different countries that are the 3 Biodiversity COP Presidencies, respectively Mexico, Egypt, and China. So before we begin, I would like to share with you some rules and dynamics for the webinar session. Microphones are muted during the presentation, and as you know, that is because it reduces interferences and facilitates communication. The session lasts 2 hours, and after a presentation from all of our colleagues, we will open the floor for questions and answer. If you think of a question while the presentation is in progress, you can use the control panel and write it down. And when the Q&A session comes, I will read your question to the speaker so he or she can answer it. If you want to speak and the connection allows it, we will open your microphone during the Q&A session. And to let us know that you would like to speak, you can simply raise your hand by clicking on the hand button in the control panel. This session is being recorded, and we will upload the recording on the NBSAP Forum YouTube channel, and we will also share the presentations on the NBSAP Forum and via email. For information, the presentations for today's webinar will be given in English. However, I'm a native French speaker and my colleague Martin is a native Spanish speaker. And so we are happy to take questions in the 3 languages and we will translate them if necessary. And similarly, we can translate answers and responses in English to French and Spanish if needed. En français. Pour information, la présentation du webinaire d'aujourd'hui sera donnée en anglais. Cependant, vous entendez que je suis francophone et que mon collègue Martine est hispanophone. On peut donc prendre vos questions en anglais, en espagnol et en français. Nous les traduirons si nécessaire. Et de la même façon, nous pouvons traduire les réponses de l'anglais vers le français et l'espagnol si vous le souhaitez. Y en español, para información, la presentación del webinar de hoy será en inglés. Sin embargo, soy francófona y mi colega Martín habla español. Por lo tanto, podemos responder sus preguntas en inglés, español y francés y las traduciremos si es necesario. De manera similar, podemos traducir las respuestas del inglés al francés y al español si es necesario. So let's go back to English, and I really want to warmly welcome and thank our colleagues from the 3 countries for being our speakers today. First, we have the Dr. Carolina Pinilla, who will be presenting the work done in Mexico. And you all know that, Mexico was the president during COP14 in Cancun. And then we will look, COP13, in Cancun. Then we will look at the work and progress made in Egypt, who hosted COP14 in Sharm el-Sheikh. with Dr. Karim Omar, who's with us. And then finally China, who will be hosting COP15 in October 2020, who also extensively uses spatial data to monitor biodiversity. And Dr. Dandan Liu will show us. So with this, let's start with the first presentation from Mexico with Dr. Carolina Pinilla. Maria Carolina Pinilla is an ecologist and holds a PhD in geography. She works on landscape management with indigenous communities, monitoring of production systems, adaptation of local communities and climate change, and management of biodiversity in infrastructure and mega projects. She is currently a Mexico 6NR specialist and offers us the pleasure to be with us today. So Carolina, thank you for your participation. The floor is yours. And while you're getting ready, I'm switching to your presentation.
Thank you, Marion. And on behalf of the Mexican Commission for the Knowledge and Use of Biodiversity and the UNDP from Mexico, I want to thank you all for being online, sharing with us this webinar. I am going to talk about the experience of the national team reporting Mexico's national contribution to Aichi biodiversity targets. Next, please, next slide. The first step to get information to report the status of the habitat loss at national level was get together all the official data and statistics. For report habitat loss for Aichi Target 5, we found that current data to measure and monitor habitat loss, fragmentation, and degradation are focusing on 5 indicators. The first indicator is vegetation and land use types, and it is measured by area and percentage. Other indicator is land use change, measured by area, rate of loss, measured by percentage, and ecosystem fragmentation analysis and secondary vegetation analysis are indicators related to fragmentation and degradation and are measured by area. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the current statistical data about types of vegetation, loss of vegetation, rate of loss by ecosystem, and the updated data in Mexico. We had a series between 1976 and 2014 to analyze vegetation loss and other kind of data about remaining natural vegetation and do an analysis about ecosystem loss. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, we jump from statistical data to spatial data. These maps are about land use change. I am now watching the map of the 5th national report. I don't know, Marion, if you can see.
Yeah, we seem to have an issue, and I'm trying to see with Prudence if she can see in the folder Prudence. There is another presentation for Mexico ending by Mexico DOS that seems to be working a bit better. I don't know if you have access to it. But you may have an issue with the internet. I'm sending it through Skype right now.
Or you can change to me. I have the...
Perfect. I'm going to change to Martin then. Yeah. Sorry about this, everyone. This is the pleasure of working on GoToWebinar. Is it working, Martin, for you?
Let me know.
Perfect. It's working.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carolina.
Okay, I'm back. From statistical data, we jumped to spatial data and to report land use change through the maps, and we are watching two different maps about land use change. The left map, it's about land use change for 2013, reported on the 5th national report, and the right map is the last update about land use change in Mexico, reported on the 6th national report. And the zoom areas inside the map is just comparing the areas in the whole country with the highest increasing land use change by agriculture, grazing lands, urban settlements. And next slide, please. So there is another kind of map and statistical analysis. The map is showing us the rate of loss at the state level. The size of the points is showing us the increasing or decreasing of the rate of loss at state level. And the graphic is showing us the remaining natural vegetation also at the state level. The green bars are showing us the remaining vegetation, and the red bars are showing us the loss of vegetation. Next slide, please. So after got this data and information, we did an assessment, and we found that this kind of data at national level only show us the change and trends, but does not assess the ecosystem condition itself or its relationships with human well-being. So we decide to use or include other concepts that effectively reflect ecosystems conditions, such as ecological integrity. So for the 6th national report, we used ecological integrity index and combine it with the Human Development Index developed by UNDP. Both of them are at municipality level, and we decide to do this because the habitat loss reported on Aichi Target 5 doesn't telling us nothing about ecosystem condition. So if we include concepts that telling us something about ecological integrity, we can talk about the relationship between ecological and human well-being. So the use of both indexes, it was an exercise to try to understand the relationship between ecological conditions and ecosystem services and human well-being. Next slide, please. So this is the Natural Capital Index, the first of them. And it was developed by researchers from Conavio at national level, and it combines ecosystem quality indicators, has stability, self-organization, and naturalness, and remaining natural vegetation. And this index has four categories to describe the ecosystem conditions. The first category is irreplaceable natural capital, and it means habitats or ecosystems that has relevant ecological properties to maintain key ecological interaction, and that those habitats represent an ecosystem stock that will provide the future ecosystem services. Another category is sustainable natural capital, and it means ecosystems with conditions has stable and self-organizing emergent properties. Another category is risk natural capital, and it means places or ecosystem where degradation level is very high and the ecological legacy is almost lost. And the last category is unsustainable natural capital, which means ecosystem places where ecosystem condition is degraded and its ecological integrity and quality is collapsed. Next slide, please. So we are watching the map of the Natural Capital Index, and it shows the north of Mexico in green colors, and it means places where it's available ecosystem stocks that will provide the future ecosystem services. And the pink colors show us the risk natural capital or unsustainable natural capital conditions where habitats are degraded and the ecological integrity is almost collapsed. Next slide, please. And here is the Human Development Index, and it was created to assessing the development through three criteria: life expectancy index, education index, and GNI index. And this map is showing us the distribution of the different levels of HDE levels around the whole country. Next slide, please. And here is the overlapping between natural capital index and HDI index. And this map showing us that central Mexico has the lowest percentage of remaining natural vegetation. It also has the highest rate of habitat lost, and it also has the highest level of HDI. The central Mexico is the region painted by pink colors. Next slide, please. So this graphic is the analysis of the map data, statistical data from the map, and this graphic is showing us the situation, and by 1,500 municipalities in Mexico, it means the 80% of municipalities in Mexico have a low natural capital index. It means the 80% of municipalities in Mexico has ecosystem condition degraded or ecological legacy almost lost. In contrast, just 38 municipalities in Mexico, it means just 1.5% have the highest natural capital index. It means ecosystems stock that will provide the future ecosystem services. Next slide, please. So we try to combine both indexes, and we didn't find a statistical relationship between them because the HDE just considers social or economical criteria, but doesn't take into account ecological criteria, and doesn't take into account externalities of the achieving human development. But this exercise showing us the development model itself in Mexico. It's promoting ecological degradation and natural capital loss, and it doesn't guarantee an increase in HDE levels wherever the way is measured. Next slide, please. And to understand the relationship between ecosystem condition and human well-being, it is necessary to measure and monitor habitat quantity and quality using concepts that showing us that a situation as well as the condition of social development in order to identify the gaps, lacks, and difference with sustainable development approach. And we found that this exercise may be a useful tool to implement or design public policies that integrate the ecosystem approach at municipality level, and we are talking about nature-based solutions for development, especially for subsidies or incentives that a National Commission for Protected Areas or a National Commission for Forestry programs are implemented on the territory. Next slide, please. And we have here another examples on using spatial data reported on the 6th national report. We try to do an exercise for gender mainstreaming, and we got data at national level disaggregated by sex. We reported this kind of data disaggregated by sex for IHE targets 3, 7, 8, 11, 12, 14, 15, 18, and 19 on topics related with subsidies, incentives, development projects on protected areas, restoration and participation, water zonation programs, farming system projects for indigenous people and local communities, forestry projects, pay for environmental services, and topics related with research on biodiversity, people involved like fellowships and researchers on research on biodiversity. And the map on the right are showing us the an assessment that we did about local projects where NGOs and other institutions are implementing on territory using conservation approaches with gender perspective. It's by 45 projects on the whole country, and it was an exercise using spatial data to understand where are located projects with gender perspective in Mexico. Next slide, please. And here, there is another example for IHE Target 2. We reported an exercise leading by Ministry of Environment and Agriculture to design a platform for reviewing incentives from forestry and agriculture sector. This platform allows to identify land units as polygons, and these land units which its owners are asking for official subsidies. The platform allows to identify the good or bad natural conditions of each polygon of land units. And for example, if the polygon of the land or the land units have a good natural condition, the subsidy can be promoted. But if the land units have a bad natural condition, the subsidy have to be eliminated. So this platform is very used to check the viability of subsidies requests for sustainable uses or approaches for conservation. Next slide, please. There is another example for using spatial data to advising design public policies. We report this example on Aichi Target 13. And this is an example on how official institutions produce information or knowledge to design policies or decision making. In this case, we are watching two maps of distribution of cultivated plants. The process started with 9 species. We are watching just two species, sea, maize, and capsicum. And for sea maize case, I mean the top map. Next slide, please. Okay. For sea maize case, the map of distribution of sea maize was used to design the official agreement for determination of centers of origin and genetic diversity of sea maize in Mexico. And this is an official standard in Mexico. This map is an official standard. The polygons are recognized by law. And next slide, please. This official agreement or this official standard is used to review the official requested places for GMO liberation. Next slide, please. This is another example, also for Aichi Target 13, and we are watching a map with the official requested places for transgenic soybean liberation, and this map is showing also the traditional beekeeping production places. I'm talking about the overlapping between requested places for liberation and traditional beekeeping production. So this is there are examples on how official information is using to design policies or decision-making processes. Next slide, please. Finally, we want to present another special data exercises that we did for Aichi Target 18 to understand the overlapping between indigenous territories and topics on biodiversity. In this case, the maps are showing us the overlapping between indigenous territories and ecological integrity, priority biological conservation sites. Next slide, please. These maps are showing us the overlapping between indigenous territories and potential places for pay for environmental services implementation and priority restoration sites. This is important. We thought that this exercise is important to understand how the public programs can be implemented on territory and include indigenous participation or local community participation. Next slide, please. Here we present a resume of the spatial data on the Mexico's 6th national report. We elaborate by 53 maps for reporting biodiversity status and trends related with Aichi targets 5, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 18, and Aichi target with the highest number of maps is 13, followed by target 5. Next slide, please. And our final considerations for the Post-2020 framework from our experience in the 6th national report is consider that 2020 framework should take into account the possibility of developing new indexes that evaluate the relationship between ecosystem condition, human well-being, or ecosystem services. It's also important to continue the support for country to strengthen their capacities to produce geographic information or data to identify patterns, tendencies on biodiversity. But we thought also that geographic information, data, and statistics are important, but they are not enough, because it is necessary to use this or that kind of information for decision making, policy design, official programs implementation, and national standards definition. And in this sense, the national team are preparing a document like IB summary for policymakers, which highlight the main result, challenges, and opportunities learned in the 6th national report, and can help us to understand what we need for progress towards to achievement the biodiversity targets. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carolina. That was really very much interesting. And I'm also really glad that you said you have so many maps in your 6NR. Our team is currently actually analyzing the 6NR on the spatial aspect, and we really noted a drastic increase in the use of spatial data. So congratulations for that, and congratulations also to all the countries who are putting a lot of efforts in that. Thank you, Carolina, a lot.
Thank you.
For everyone, as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be taking questions after all of the presentations. If you do have already questions for Carolina, feel free to write them down in the control panel so I can read that to her afterwards. So we're now going to go to Egypt with Dr. Karim Omar, who is an IUCN Red List Global Assessor. He has an extensive experience in protected areas development, field survey, monitoring manuals, plant conservation planning, GIS, environmental modeling, eco-geographical analysis, and geomatics. He has over 12 years of experience in data analysis, mapping, sustainable development, biodiversity, and environmental benefits. And we are very happy to have you with us, Karim, today. So you can unmute yourself, and I'm gonna put your presentation on. Thank you, Karim, for being with us. The presentation should display in a second. Perfect. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Thanks, Mariam. Thanks, Caroline, for the nice presentation, and you some very powerful effort. Hello, everybody. It is my pleasure to be with you today. I really appreciate the efforts of you UNDP team to support me by this opportunity. Such events are powerful tools to strengthen the experience exchange and build the communication and future cooperation between nations as well. Today, I will talk about the importance of spatial planning in managing protected areas and natural resources in Egypt. Next slide, please. All of us know that biodiversity are found everywhere and support our life by many services. Unfortunately, and rapidly in the recent years, our sustainable use for these services and materials leads to many deterioration in habitats and species distribution. Anthropogenic threats is one of the main threats that include pollution, habitat destruction, reduced species, and climate change can lead to a huge deterioration in habitats, and the biodiversity leads to loss of animals and plants species in many areas. In order to stop this and reduce the effect of human activity, we should have a management adaptive plan. And to produce a management plan, we need to have information that support the decision maker to do the suitable decision in conservation of biodiversity. Here we will find the importance of spatial planning as a tool for assessing the current status of biodiversity and human activity threats, and produced simple information using maps to decision makers that facilitates their work. Next slide, please. Another click. So what we need to do spatial planning. We need spatial data, all data that containing the coordinates. We need to have sheets with GPS coordinates that supporting topics that we need to assess, like species diversity, cover, threats, degree, habitat states, trend, population, human uses, infrastructure development, and etc. Next slide, please. Today, I will show you some examples for spatial mapping that we have done in Egypt to determine the effectiveness of protected area and conservation of natural resources. Until now, we have declared 30 protected areas cover about 15% of the country area. Some of them are marine and others are terrestrial protected areas. We have divided it in several sections. The first section is country profile, which produce information about the site of Egypt, the geology, geography, climate, and other tasks. Next slide, please. These maps produce the topography of Egypt, which produced by data obtained from Landsat maps, topographic maps, which flow direction. So, okay, I go next slide. Next slide. These maps produce presents the geology and phytogeographical regions that focus on the regions and the black line and the polygons are the protected areas of Egypt. It's distributed in 15% of the site area. These maps facilitate the decision about the percentage of each regions in each protected area. Next slide, please. This data extracted from UN Biodiversity Labs about the freshwater and terrestrial ecoregions, and each region will classified and calculated in each protected area. Next slide. This is the climate variables of Egypt, which presents the maximum, minimum, and precipitation in Egypt. This will help decision makers to determine and assess biodiversity and species pattern in each protected area. Next slide. This slide is about the land uses classes. Each class were extracted and calculated for each protected area to determine how to use the resources in each protected area. Next slide, please. These are satellite maps that produce the vegetation cover all over Egypt. You will notice that all vegetation cover are concentrated in the river Nile, where the water are available. The other sites are mountain and desert area. Next slide, please. The next section is about biodiversity that supports life and livelihood. Here, in this section, we will present the human population, percentage of poverty rates, number of employees in governance sector, male versus female, water produced for irrigation and for drinking, total production of field crops and vegetables, total production of greenhouse bioton, percentage of total production of field crops, fish production in marine and freshwater. Next slide. Here's some example about population density and poverty in categorized based on the governorate's distribution. This spatial variation may be indication about the future uses of resources in close to each protected area. Next slide, please. This map presents the major production rate of main field crops divided into each sections regarding to the governing rates of Egypt. Next slide, please. This map presents the total fish production in Egypt in each governing rate based on Mediterranean or Red Sea fishing or freshwater or farms, fish farms. Next slide, please. This also presents the estimated number of cattle and animal heads in each governorate all over Egypt. Next slide. This is the third section. In this section, we will present the hotspots, estimated hotspots for biodiversity in Egypt. Next slide. To make a hotspot biodiversity map for Egypt, it was a very challenging matter because we have not enough data, special data about the coordinates of species distribution. So we collect as possible as available data found in Egypt in national scale and international scale from scientific research, the national database, reports of international and national agencies, and online databases. We have collected about 1 million dataset for and presents the main kingdoms of biodiversity: animalia, planta, bacteria, chromista, fungi, and then it's cleaned to remove the duplication and presented each class where the data sources were presented and cited for each kingdom, species distribution, species density, or in protected area hotspots were done for this for each kingdom. Next slide, please. Another one click, yeah. Okay, this is the methodology of this work for each kingdom, coordinates for each family, class were collected, then cleaned to remove the duplication and irrelevant, and then data analyzed by GIS, and then to extract the suitable habitats for the same areas. We did ecological niche modeling using the Maxent software. Next slide, please. This is the distribution of the total coordinates collected for the main kingdoms for biodiversity in Egypt. Of course, this is not all the coordinates that have recorded, but this is for now is the most available correct data sets that we have to collect. Next slide. So we did ecological niche modeling using the Maxent software to produce the same suitable sites for these coordinates, and by 80% it was correct based on the previous work that the red color is the hot biodiversity, is high, and the green one is the lowest modern. So the hotspot for biodiversity regions are concentrated in the Mediterranean coast and the River Nile and the Red Sea coast. So if we assess the biodiversity in the protected areas that have declared until now, most of them are not effective for conservation for the hotspots for biodiversity. But some protected areas will also declared for geological importance and other issues. Next slide, please. This part will discuss the impact of Egypt on global biodiversity. Next slide, please. Here is the distribution of 30 protected areas in Egypt, ranked based on the ISIN criteria as national. Some of them are national parks, some of them are natural monuments, some of them are habitat and species management area, others are protected landscape, others are protected area with sustainable use for natural resource. Next slide, please. To determine the effectiveness of protected area in conservation of marine biodiversity in Egypt, we overlapped the central of key biodiversity areas that have declared in Egypt on a map that containing protected area border. So we found that most of the key biodiversity areas that were declared were not found overlapped with protected area. There is an urgent need to modify the border of protected areas to include this key biodiversity area. Next slide. Another. Yes. Okay. To be sure and to be accurate, we separate all important natural and cultural sites in Egypt in the protected areas map to determine the effectiveness of conserving these sites. We set the sites of UNESCO sites, Ramsar sites, important bird areas and important plant areas, and we found some of them are effective and other is outside the protected area. There is need to modify the border of protected areas. Next slide, please. In this part, we will discuss the threats on biodiversity, the current situation, and trends. Next slide, please. To determine the effect of human activity on the biodiversity in Egypt, we should have a layer for threat and human presence. So we collect all data that indicates the presence of human in Egypt, like roads, railway station, railway traffic, infrastructure, that includes hospitals, buildings, natural monuments, cafes. Each point that presents the and indicates that humans are found in this area. And we will notice that all these points are concentrated in the River Nile and Sinai and the Mediterranean coast. Next slide. Determine the effectiveness and the effect of these threats on the biodiversity hotspots in Egypt. We overlapped the human indications on the hotspots biodiversity map, and we found that humans in Egypt are found in the hotspots areas in Egypt and there is an urgent need to have adaptive management to that expect the human use for the natural resources in the protected area. Next slide, please. These are satellite maps that present the human activity within the last 10 years. This Mediterranean coast. This is a protected area. The black color in the north area, it is recreation area, tourism cities, and agriculture expansion. The map, the satellite map that in the blue part, it is after 30 years of human development and agricultural expansions that cause the deterioration of the coastal area of one of the protected areas in Egypt. Next slide, please. Here is data collected and extracted from available sites to determine the drought severity in Egypt and the percentage of each degree in each protected area. Next slide. This is another map about the groundwater stress in Egypt that are concentrated on the River Nile. Next slide, please. This is the flood occurrence in Egypt and the highest area that are affected by the floods in Egypt. Next slide. Yeah, at the final, as I have found many challenges in collecting data during this experiment, and I found many not scientific work and unscientific need based on species collection. So I have a recommendation about that data collecting must have expertise in species identification and data collection, and if no, we should have suitable training that will rise in capacity to collecting data. I found that restriction to the availability and availability of data is our barrier to expansion of data platform, and there is an important to have open access with rules that support us to do our work easily. Next slide, please. Improved access to spatial biodiversity can help us to avoid detrimental impacts on the most important site species and habitats, target conservation action, and thereby increase their efficiency, harmonize biodiversity monitoring and evaluation framework, publish indicator of states and trends of biodiversity, facilitate the public availability of biodiversity data and studies currently kept by private sector. Next slide. Thank you. It's the final one.
Thank you, Karim, for that. Thanks so much. Also for, just like Carolina, showing the great and diversities that you can do with spatial data to monitor biodiversity. And thank you also for showing how many, actionable maps you can create to really concretely support the decision making. And I looked closely to the 6NR of Egypt, and I know you've been using most of those maps to guide decision making in there. So great job.
Thank you.
So now we are going to hear from our very final speaker for this webinar series, Dr. Dandan Yu, who will be presenting the work done in China Dan Yu is a researcher at the Nanjing Institute of Environmental Science. She of the Ministry of Ecology and Environment of China, and her research includes the relationship between biodiversity, ecosystem structures and functions, and ecosystem services, but also on the impacts of land use, exotic species, and climate events. She holds a postdoc from the Research Center of Eco-Environmental Sciences at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. So Dan, the floor is yours. I know it's a bit late in China, so thank you for being with us. And please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon. We highly appreciate the opportunity to join the webinar. It's really meaningful to exchange views with experts around the world on the experiences of using spatial data on China's biodiversity conservation. China is one of the countries with the richest biodiversity and also one of the earliest to join the Convention on Biological Diversity. The government of China has attached great importance to biodiversity conservation. China established a national committee for biodiversity conservation to coordinate biodiversity conservation actions. It suits China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and
Dan, we lost you for a second. Can you still hear us? I think we may have some issues with Dan. Let me see. So we probably have a little issue with Dan right now. I don't think Dan can hear us. We apologize for that. However, maybe in the meantime, we can... Dan, can you hear us? So Dan, we cannot hear you, so I would invite you to maybe disconnect and then reconnect, just like you did before. I think it's just an issue with the microphone. Maybe what we can do in the meantime is to open the floor for questions that would focus on the two first presentations that were made by Carolina and Karim from respectively Mexico and Egypt. So I see quite a lot of people in the participants list that we know and that we've been working with for the past month. And some of them have even presented in this webinar session. So I would like to open the floor for any questions that you may have. Let's see. So right now we don't have questions. However, I did note a couple of questions. And maybe for you, Carolina, actually, one of the questions I had during your presentations was focusing on how do you involve, IPLC, so indigenous peoples and local communities in the process of validation of the data? Because often we work with global data, but we know that the data needs to be validated at the very local level. So how do you involve those IPLCs? And I think your microphone is on mute right now. Do you hear us, Carolina?
Oh, yeah. Thank
Perfect.
you. The question is about how we involve people on validation processes?
How do you involve, indigenous people, yeah.
Repeat me the last part. Excuse me, I can't hear you well.
La pregunta es cómo involucraron a comunidades locales y pueblos indígenas, si los involucraron en la validación de algunos de los datos espaciales. Si bien sabemos que muchos de los datos espaciales son a nivel global, también sabemos que requieren validación a este nivel local. Entonces, la pregunta es si ustedes involucraron a comunidades locales y pueblos indígenas en la validación de datos espaciales.
Okay, the special data for indigenous territories in Mexico is not global data, it's national data official information from Mexico, and we did hello, can you hear me?
Sí,
Yeah, we
sí.
can hear
okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. We did
Okay.
hola.
You can say it in Spanish. I can translate.
Hi.
We can
Hi.
hear you. Sorry, it's Dandan reconnected, but we can hear you. Please go ahead with your answer, Carolina.
I'm sorry because I can hear you well. Hi.
We can hear you, Carolina.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I am talking. I was talking about we did hi.
En español está bien.
Hola.
Te escuchamos.
Carolina, we can hear your microphone, so just please keep speaking.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we did a workshop with local communities to do an assessment about local projects in Mexico, and it was the map I show you in the presentation. And the validation for spatial data was done by experts. And in another workshop that we did in February this year, and in this workshop were involved experts from the academy, from the government, and NGOs. So the information was assessed by many people, not just from local communities, but they were involved on produce that kind of information.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for the element of response. That was helpful. I'm reactivating Dandan's microphone. Dandan, can you hear us? Dandan? Okay, no, this is not working for Dandan, unfortunately. It's a real shame that China cannot be here right now. So I see that Dandan is trying to reconnect again. In the meantime, I would like to ask Karim from Egypt. So how has spatial data influenced national policies? So I know you have been using spatial data a lot in the 6NR and potentially in the recent past. And how did that support, the national policy? Did you see any change?
Hello. Now
Yeah,
it's okay.
Dandan, it's working. Okay, just a second. Dandan, can you hear us? And if yes, can you say hello?
Yeah. The internet is wrong.
Perfect. So, Karim, I'm just going to put on hold this question I had for you because Dandan's microphone is finally working. So we're just going to keep going with the presentation of Dandan that is still on the screen. Dandan, please go ahead and don't forget to ask us to change the slide whenever you want to go next.
Okay, our opinion. Yeah. In China, 6 national reports based on remote sensing survey and assessment of national ecological changes for 2000 to 2015. We assist the China's terrestrial ecosystem and distribution. China has 4 main types of ecosystem: grassland, forests, farmlands, and deserts, accounting for 82.6% of country's total land area. Natural ecological space in China accounts for about 78% of country's total land area. In 2011, China initiated the pilot work on biodiversity monitoring. Using species presence or absence data at country level, we identified the hot spots where China's plants, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals are mainly located in. Okay, next page, please. Returning farmlands to forests or grassland is a typical representative of China's major restoration projects. It has been extended from China's lowest plateau to the whole country. Since the implementation of the projects, the returning of farmland to forests has produced significant ecological benefits and extensive impact on the vegetation restoration. Using the satellite remote sensing of vegetation coverage and other observation data, we studied the vegetation restoration and its impacts on the ecosystem services. As is shown in this picture, the improvement, the trend of vegetation is obvious, and the proportion of the vegetation restoration during 2000-2015 is 79%. Okay, next page, please. Restoring vegetation in China's lowest plateau that results in significant increase in the ecosystem services of hydrological regulation, carbon sequestration, net primary productivity of typical vegetation. From 2000 to 2010, the area of surface evapotranspiration increased to 48,940.1 square kilometers, accounting for about 40% of total area of the typical region. The net primary productivity increased significantly, accounting for about 60% of the total area, and the total carbon sequestration increased by 45%. Next slide, please. Next, I will introduce the assessment indicator system and data source for the China's sixth national report. Our indicator system based on the pressure stage welfare response framework, including 21st level indicators and 66 second level indicators. The data types include remote sensing image, statistical data, investigation, and observation data, and the data sources involved in the national and departmental statistics, international scientific data platform, and so on. So, we have utilized special data in the sixth national report, such as the indicators of ecological footprints, net primary productivity. However, what we have shown in the sixth national report is the final results of the statistical analysis instead of mapping the special data or indicators. It may cause that the status and changes of them across different regions or scales could not be fully displayed, or to explain the effectiveness of the national policies and action plans in details. Next, please. But how to use special data to inform actionable national policies? We think that it should contain 3 steps. Firstly, it's necessary to identify the special data related to the H target of global biodiversity conservation or beyond that. I think this step is very important because it will help evaluate the potential and the dominance of the special data for the national policy development. Secondly, we must ensure the special data available at the national or regional level. At present, not all special data covers every region and a country of the world. Therefore, the special data availability would determine whether it can be widely used in the monitoring and assessment at national and below scales. Thirdly, we need to check whether the special data have application in published research papers, national, regional, or global assessment reports that should be verified. In other words, When we determine to adopt a certain special dirt or indicator in a national or regional assessment, we need to examine whether it has been scientifically proven to be reliable and has a demonstration in similar regions or countries. Next slide, please. There is no doubt that the UN Biodiversity Lab helps us to take the first step. The website of UN Biodiversity Lab includes 91 special dirt for China, which related to age target 5, 11, 12, 14, and 15. In addition, the UN Lab also has 118 special dirt related to 10 important themes, including biodiversity, climate and carbon, ecosystem services, land cover, and so on. We believe that the accurate special data is crucial to support biodiversity reporting and monitoring and will contribute to the post-2020 biodiversity conservation in China. Next slide, please. So in the last part of this presentation, I will introduce some potential special dirt in the UN lab to China's biodiversity conservation policies. These special dirt was chosen because they have been scientifically proven to be reliable, with much more potential to support biodiversity reporting and monitoring in China in the future. These potential special dirt involved in the aspect of the status and changes of the national habitat protected area and human impact. China's rich and unique biodiversity formed due to its vast land area, complicated topographic conditions, and coverage of several climatic zones. China has various ecosystem types. From a long-term monitoring perspective, the special data of ecoregions is essential to assess their habitat status. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, China's afforestation is being accelerated, and a number of the major forest ecological conservation and restoration projects have been steadily implemented since these projects was initiated. National forest resources have been growing constantly. This figure shows the gains associated with the forest cover change in China. Accurate special data and monitoring for the forest cover will contribute to evaluating the effectiveness of the forest ecological conservation and restoration projects. Next, please. The tree canopy change will also contribute to the monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of China's large-scale reforestation and afforestation programs. Plateau and the Chilean Carbon Mountains and increasing area of plantations in southeastern China has also led to tree canopy gain in China. This will contribute to exploring the establishment of mechanisms for government-sponsored social services to carry out afforestation and forest protection. Next, please. Reporting and monitoring the status and changes of age target 11 elements is crucial to support post-2020 biodiversity conservation. As is shown in the figure, China has established a system of protected areas. Special data of protected areas will be conducive to optimize the spatial layout of nature reserves, and scientifically construct a biodiversity conservation network. Next slide, please. The key biodiversity area is an important element of Target 11. According to the World Database on Protected Areas, the number of the key biodiversity area in China is 675, and average percent of terrestrial and marine key biodiversity areas covered by the protected areas is about 38% and 22% by 2019. Although the key biodiversity areas has not been involved by China's relevant protection agencies at present, China is an indispensable part of the key biodiversity areas international work. Next slide, please. The connectivity is essential to assess the progress in implementing the Target 11. In China, the possibility of reaching larger amounts of the protected land significantly depends on the possibility of traversing contiguous protected areas, often with the different designation and AOC management categories. Previous research indicates as the deficits in coverage are reduced, the strategy needs to progressively shift towards an increasing focus on filling key connectivity gaps in China. These gaps could be addressed through the designation of the strategically located protected areas to link the rest of protected areas by acting as the corridors or stepping stones between them. Next slide, please. China is a great country with the largest population in the world. The spatial data layers of the human footprint covering human population pressure provides information on where humans are exerting pressure on natural system, while provides information on where these pressures are absent, and ecosystems are likely to be operating in a more natural state. The pressure-free lands represent candidate sites for consideration as wilderness. It can therefore provide a yardstick for choosing the production and consumption pattern and development of environmental economic policies. This guiding the drive towards ecological civilization in China, as is shown in this figure. The western regions in China may be as the wilderness. Next slide, please. China is the largest developing country in the world. The study indicated that nearly half of the increase in the high probability urban expansion global is focused to in Asia, with China and India observed 55% of the regional total. This special data showed the probabilities of the urban expansion to 2030. In China, the GDP is a strong driver of the urban land expansion, and the urban expansion is forecast to create a 1,800 kilometers coastal urban corridor from Hangzhou to Shenyang. Much of the forecasted urban expansion is likely to occur in eastern China. The mountains of southwest China is forecast to be largely unaffected directly by urban expansion. It may have a disproportionate impact on the biodiversity. Next slide, please. Overall, accurate spatial data is crucial to support biodiversity reporting and monitoring. The availability of the spatial data allows for visual representation of China's national contribution to the global edge targets and conservation efforts, which assisted in the 6th national reporting progress for the post-2020 global biodiversity conservation. We welcome the spatial data as it is easily available online via the UNBL platform. The UNBL allowed us to study protection effectiveness at global level and the regional key biodiversity areas in details and to support national and regional conservation planning and priority setting. Finally, I would like to extend my gratitude to the webinar organizers for providing this platform. China will host the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity in 2020. We would like to welcome all of you to get including China. Let's work together to contribute to the post-2020 global biodiversity conservation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dandan, for that great presentation, for also showing how the UN Biolab has helped you, preparing those maps and also to enlighten us a bit for what will be needed in the future, and, putting into perspective with, social data as well. So now that we have heard from the three speakers and we understand a bit more how they use spatial data and how they intend to use it in the future, I would like to invite all of the participants to share their questions, to share your comments and your perspective on how you use spatial data. You can use the control panel to share your questions. You can raise your hand by clicking on the hand button if you would like to speak to a presenter, so I can unmute you. And keep in mind that we are a very international team, so please speak slowly and clearly. And again, we can take questions in English, French, and Spanish. So while I'm waiting for your questions to arrive, I would like to go back to the questions I was asking to Karim before we had the little issue with Dandan's microphone. So Karim, what I was asking was to maybe help us understand, how increasing the number of maps and increasing the use of spatial data has helped creating, national policies and implementing them. I assume that, you are doing the maps because you're a spatial data expert, and then you provide them to different ministries, etc. So how did the maps, increase collaboration and the implementation of policies? Do you have any element of response for that?
Thanks, Mariam. Yeah. Yes. Within the last 10 years, we showed increase in the use of spatial planning in the area of biodiversity conservation. In the aspect of we have now information about species hotspots, threatened species status and trend, threats levels and degree, human development impact on biodiversity, community structure and uses, ecosystem systems, mapping. All this information facilitates the decision making in the conservation planning and action, especially in situ conservation. This information also helped us to change the protected areas boundaries based on the new information about the hotspot and diversity, distribution of biodiversity. Also, it's helped decision makers outside the Ministry of Environment to manage the development mega project. Some of the development mega projects were cancelled or modified to taking into account the biodiversity hotspots. This process of data collection make the ministries in a good collaboration to make the first national database for unique for all the ministries. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and we know the issue of collecting data and sharing them through the different stakeholders can be challenging. And a lot of countries that we worked with for the sixth national report really noticed that information is disaggregated and it's really hard to have access to all of it. And so that's why we are trying to have this webinar series, to bring attention to that and to change things in the future to make sure there is a better communication among, ministries and data providers, so we can all serve, biodiversity conservation purposes. Thank you for your response, Karim. I think Martin had a question, and that could be a question for the three speakers, actually.
Yeah, thank you, Marian. So my question is as follows. We tend to map some Aichi biodiversity targets more than others, but through the presentations we have seen some maps and some spatial data a part of the usual suspects, meaning Aichi biodiversity targets 5, 11, 12, 14, and 15. So my question is, what are the pros, what are the advantages of mapping other Aichi biodiversity targets like target 3 and I think 19 that Carolina shown, for example? It's not just mapping because we have the data, but I would like to hear from you the pros of mapping the rest of Aichi biodiversity targets. Over to you, and thank you.
So with this question, maybe we can start with Dandan responding to that. Dandan, if you can hear us and if you have elements of response, would you like?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, in the context of the global biodiversity conservation, the available of the spectrum will allow for a visual representation of the national contribution to the CBD target or global biodiversity targets and conservation efforts related to the NBSAP Post-2020 and sports biodiversity reporting and monitoring. For China, there are some specters that have been scientifically proven to be reliable, have much more potential to support the biodiversity reporting and monitoring in China in future. For example, some potential special dirt, such as the forecast cover, canopy change. These special dirt will contribute to monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of China's large-scale reforestation and afforestation. Some other special dirt, such as the protected areas, key biodiversity areas, connectivity, these special actors will contribute to the edge target 11. I think the special dirt is crucial to support the biodiversity reporting. The UN lab has identified the special dirt related to the edge target and the themes related to the global biodiversity conservation. For example, at present, the UN lab have developed 91 special dirt related to edge target and 118 special dirt related to different themes. But there are still some problems using special dirt to inform actionable national policies. The problem is mainly reflected in these follow aspects, including the high spatial resolution and the coverage of special dirt, like in long-term data series to support dynamic monitoring and the prediction of the future changes. Some special dirt are not latest than and the data sharing problem, lacking a detailed document about spatial data or application scope, regime education, evaluate method, and the specific application cases. I think in order to promote the indicator of spatial data into the national policy, we suggest that we should build biodiversity databases and the information system based on the spatial data, developed technologies and tools for deep mining of the biodiversity data, big data promotes the sharing of the data resources, strengthens the demonstration and the promotion of the results and experiences of the biodiversity conservation based on the spatial data. And we also developed the indicator system and methods for assessing the process in biodiversity conservation objects. And we can strengthen the development of the decision-making support system for target setting for biodiversity conservation and progress assessment based on spatial data. Yeah, I think these are my questions, my answer.
Thank you, Danan, for that very detailed response. It's an interesting perspective. Thank you. Actually, Martin, I think this question could be a question for also the two other speakers, and we can turn to Karim. Maybe Karim, did you hear Martin's question?
Yes, I completely agree with Dandan. The problem not is to how to make mapping for each target, but the problem is how to collect information about our data from different organizations in the same national level with accuracy and the type of data. There is no standard format for each agency to collect the data. Some of the data are not accurate to be used, but there is no problem for mapping anything, but we need the suitable data to reflect the good picture about each achievement in each target.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And this is true also for any kind of data. Today we are on spatial data, but this is also true for non-spatial data, and having several agencies. How about you, Carolina? Could you answer Martin's question?
Yeah, thank you. As I told you in the presentation, our assessment or learning on the 6 national report, it's the spatial data, geographical information, statistic data are very important to support national policies, but it's not enough, because we need to move from knowledge producing to policies design. And it was a topic that I told in the presentation, because this is very important I mean, I am talking about countries like Mexico, that we have a lot of information, and we have to find the bridges to move from information to policies, designs, to standards, definitions, and do the real implementing information to take decisions for conservation and biodiversity restoration.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carolina, for that response too. And this is also somewhere that, you agencies like the CBD, UNDP, and UN Environment can support. And that's why I was explaining at the beginning that we created a database and a roster of spatial data experts that are available to support the countries with spatial data. And we strongly believe that as we increase spatial data literacy, policies will become more efficient and better implemented to monitor and conserve biodiversity. But this is a joint effort, and we provide tools, but we also want to hear your feedback and want to hear your perspective and the difficulties that you may have when using spatial data. So I turn again over to the crowd and the participants and would like to maybe provide 30 seconds to 1 minute for you to ask questions. It's a very quiet webinar today, and we have spatial data experts here, and we're here to take questions in French, Spanish, and English. So if you would like to participate and contribute, it is now or never. So we'll leave just a few more seconds to see if we have questions. And if not, I'm gonna turn over to Carolina for some concluding remarks. Carolina, is there anything that you would like to conclude on for today's webinar?
Thank you, Marianne. So we want to remake about our final considerations to the 2020 framework. Should take into account the possibility of developing new indexes that evaluate the relationship between ecosystem conditions, ecosystem services, and human well-being. And we want to remake the support of the UN lab for strange countries' capacities to produce geographic information and other kind of data to identify patterns and trends. We identified that that kind of information can be useful to identify different situations about conservation's needs and other kind of trends on different topics. So we want to thank you to invite us and sharing with you our experience on the 6th national report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolina, for those remarks and for participating in this last webinar. Karim, representing Egypt here, do you have any concluding remarks on your side as well?
Yes, thanks, Marion. It is very important for me to have a solution for areas that faced me about the restriction and to availability and the data usage on the internet and online. It is very important to solve this issue. There is very important to support nationals by suitable budget to do field surveys to accurate the data surveys about biodiversity and stress on human activity. That's all I have now. And thank you. The final, I thank you for the nice invitation and for your support during this period of time.
Thank you, Karim. A real pleasure to work with you. And I will conclude with Dandan, our very last speaker for this very last session. Dandan, is there anything you would like to say to conclude this webinar on your end?
Yes. First, we want to thank for the organizer to invite me to join this webinar series. About the UN Lab Biodiversity Spatial Data, we have some suggestions for them. The first, I think we should more integrate multi-sources and multi-skills biodiversity data. Secondly, we suggest that the UN Lab should build, develop the technologies and tools for the deep mining of the biodiversity research. Thirdly, I suggest the UN Lab should promote the sharing of the data resources. At last, we suggest we should strengthen the development of the decision-making support system for target setting of biodiversity conservation and progress assessment based on the spatial data. I think these technology and the tools, it will be very helpful to prove out the UN Lab Biodiversity Lab. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dandan, for those recommendations. Yeah, we always try to improve actually the UN Biodiversity Lab, and that's why we love having feedback from the users. And thank you for your remarks. So once again, thank you to Carolina, Karim, and Dandan for a very informative webinar session. It was extremely interesting to hear about spatial data uses in your national context, in your national report, but also the use that you plan on making of spatial data in the future. I would like also to thank all of the participants who attended this webinar session, and more generally all of the participants who attended the webinar series. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, I will upload the recording of this session on the NBSAP Forum YouTube channel as we do for each session, and the presentation will be shared on the NBSAP Forum and via email. This was the last session of the webinar series on best practices in using spatial data, examples from around the world. So we've been followed by many participants, and we learned from each other's perspective and expertise. All the recordings are available on the NBSAP forum, as well as all of the presentation. And if you do have any questions, we work with spatial data experts in our team, and our team supports, the use of spatial data in national reporting and in future actions and national policies. So if you do have any question, you can contact us via my email address at the following: Marion, M-A-R-I-O-N .marigo, M-A-R-I-G-O @undp.org. Thank you again for your participation, and we hope to see you again soon, connected for our next webinar series. And with this, I will conclude the webinar.